So I did some test games and stuff to figure out what the the fallout of these decisions would be, and even though most of you seem to want Floyd Olson, I, from testing, found out that if you choose Floyd Olson, the Pacific states do not rebel, at least not with the choices that I made earlier in the Civil War, or sorry, in the build-up to the Civil War. So that would make a situation where I could only play, for example, the CSA, or the AUS, or the United States of America, which, at the moment, even though, you know, my patrons disagree as well, but, you know, they haven't been charged yet, so I don't feel necessarily as bad for going against the grain there, but even though my patrons do disagree, the comments seem to mostly want a CSA and a PSA playthrough, though there are definitely a lot of you who want a Douglas MacArthur, or a US Democratic playthrough, or a Huey Long playthrough. But yeah, the majority seems to want CSA or PSA, or both, as a split timeline, as I said, but that's not going to be possible if we choose Floyd Olson, even though I do want to choose him because I think he is actually, like, he would be a very good choice in this situation here. However, in terms of a story, I think it's way more interesting if all this effort was put into trying to rescue democracy, trying to save the American experiment, trying to ensure that there's compromise on all sides, but then because of, I don't know, like, existing biases, existing, like, ideas of who's allowed to participate in this democracy, two sides were completely neglected in this compromise, the AUF and the CSA. And the CSA were underestimated, leading to a socialist president, Jack Reed. That's my choice. And for the simple stated reason that, you know, I would choose Floyd Olson, but then that kind of messes up the world situation. And I don't usually look ahead in the playthrough to look at the events and, you know, quote-unquote spoil myself. I try to make everything be fresh and organic as I see it. Yeah, we're gonna just zoom on right ahead with President Reed. A writer, a trade union leader, a senator, a journalist, and a syndicalist, John Jack Reed is many things. After the death of his predecessor, Alexander Berkman, this fiery radical socialist took the reins of the American syndicalist movement, and he has led the organization to great success. And of course, the AFP contest the election results. What a card. I mean, yeah, I suppose. The American First leadership have contested the results of the election. They claim that Reed's allies have rigged the election and demanded a recount. Huey Long even gave a mocking speech accepting the presidency to his followers. Some murmurs from inside the AFP have reported that the Democrats that left for the AFP have expressed regret for losing this historic election. Yeah, that is a thing you do not do. You do not make a mocking speech where you accept the presidency to your followers, because that is signaling to your followers that you are their legitimate president, and inoculating them against actually accepting the opposition as the president. That is a very undemocratic move. Status of the US Army. The defense of the United States have always been an uphill battle. Stretched thin against the vast breadth of the North American continent, the United States Army has had little chance to distinguish itself throughout its 160-year history. It won the bare minimum of victories to maintain American independence during the Revolution of 1812. And the War of 1812. It performed admirably against the corrupt regime of the Mexican-American War, or in the Mexican-American... Oh my god, my mouth runs ahead of my brain. But half of those forces would provide the seed for the fledgling Confederate Army during the ensuing Civil War. This is just like a Wikipedia synopsis of American history, though let's actually look at the more recent stuff. So, they subdued the heavily outgunned Spanish and struggled to suppress the half-starved Filipino insurrection in more than 30 years ago. So the insurrection, I'm not quite sure if that's real, it probably is, but the Spanish in the Spanish-American War was obviously real. The last war that America would have gotten into, like a conventional war, I think, at this time, where they seized the Philippines. Puppet, there you go. It has suffered in both doctrine and technology, with no tanks at all and a small air corps subsidiary to the ground forces. With a hobbled line that was the British Empire on the northern frontier and a syndicalist stronghold poised in the south, the US Army must be asked to defend the Republic from enemies within and without. And few agree that they are up to the task. Alright, so now we get a new focus to pick, and I'm going to, let's see, I'm going to pick the US Navy, because that's the only one we actually have. The American Navy, an institution whose history is so deeply interwoven with that of the nation as a whole, has been in steady decline after years of neglect. No more, we must again turn our attention to naval affairs, and we have elections in Italy. That's the Italian Republic, I believe. Yeah, they have elected Alcide di Gaspieri, who I believe, let's see here. I think it's in this tree here, or it might not be. There might be a crisis which puts them down, one of them. We can't actually see what they've researched, we only see what they're currently researching. I do hope they overhaul the espionage system in well, Kaiserreich, but in Hearthstone 4 in general. That'd be great. Herbert Hoover has been vocal after the election and openly criticized Reid and the SPA as being unfit to lead the country. However, Hoover has encouraged both the Republicans and Democrats to form an alliance to curb Reid and the SPA. Well, they already had one. Didn't really work, did it? Also, some people mentioned something about this being kind of slow. I do have a slow and very deliberate playstyle, but I'll try to accelerate it a little bit. Try to get us faster or closer to the Civil War at a faster rate. Thing is though, like, in most playthroughs I'd be a bit deeper into the playthrough by this point, but in the American one, there's just so many events. It's actually kind of mad. Like, it's a very fleshed out nation. Someone mentioned that you get the doctrine if you tag switch, so or the doctrine research and stuff. So I'm wondering if we should go for mobile warfare, because that's kind of the American way of war. It's got some problematic trees in terms of historicity, but I believe that is the best one for America. It obviously is the one modeled on, quote-unquote modeled on the German way of war, which is basically just every nation's way of war, but applied successfully. There was nothing special about the German way of war in World War II at all. It was exactly what they had done in World War I, except, you know, it worked this time. Then you have superior firepower, which I believe this is actually meant to be what this game's version of the American doctrine, because America famously was quite good at the whole mortar and artillery organization stuff. In specifically the Pacific War, it led to great advantages there. And yeah, like, shock and awe feels like something you would hear from an American. Air-land battle, I believe, is also an American concept. So this part, I believe, is American. I'm actually unsure which one we're gonna go with. I do really like artillery in this game, but it's been kind of nerfed. No, maneuver warfare is the way to win wars, modern wars. So I'm gonna go with mobile warfare. Status of the US Navy. The United States Navy, long the darling child of the American defense establishment, has been a strong force in global maritime affairs for nearly 50 years. A rival even to the vaunted Kaiserliche Marine and the Kaiserliche Marine, I don't know, and Royal Navy at their height in the Weltkrieg. It has defended America's shores and sallied forth to spread stability and democracy for nigh on 160 years. From John Paul Jones's raid on the British mainland to the Battle of Manila Bay, the Navy has provided the security needed by the Republic from those that would infringe upon our independence from beyond the seas. All is not well in the modern day, however. The Navy's ships are old. Her flagships are Weltkrieg-era dreadnoughts, even as Germany and the syndicalists engage in a new naval arms race. The tattered remnants of the Royal Navy lick their wounds. New carriers have been commissioned, but they are nowhere near ready to take on the Imperial Japanese fleet. The Marine Corps fares better, hardened as they are by constant action in tropical locals, but they are small, only a few regiments strong, and are powerless to effect increasing tensions at home from their far-flung island bases. The Honor Guard of Washington, D.C. look increasingly powerless as violence in the nation's capital increases. Our white ships might dominate the waves, but many question whether it will be enough to face the gathering storm on the horizon. Alright, that's a mouthful. I should really rest my voice because I did go out last night and have some alcohol, which we all know what that does to the vocal cords. Kind of had to though, because my sister told me that her friends met the actor who played the Hound at a bar, and so my sister was like, "Yo, we should go down there," and we did, and met the Hound, actor who plays the Hound in Game of Thrones, of course. That was cool. My dude, for some reason, decided to stop by a very small town on the coast in Norway. I mean, almost all towns in Norway are on the coast. So, in terms of these, I think we're gonna go with the fleet carrier plan, because I don't really care about convoy interdiction, and although dreadnoughts and huge ships are cool, the American way of fighting is carriers, and especially carriers are very important and useful for maintaining air superiority in an area where it's not actually always that easy to have airplanes in range. Like the Pacific, for example, which is a place I think we'll be fighting a lot, and also places like this. Carriers are amazing for force projection in this game. And we're loud. So I'm gonna set us to all random now. Now we should be getting some more random music. This guy's picture always makes me feel kind of weird. He looks kind of like, you know, the meme picture of the Grey, the alien. That's what I think of when I look at my man Georges Valois. Imagine if we had a also for air doctrine stuff for a nation like this. I like battlefield support. It's a good one, but I'm gonna go with industry first. The country's social problems have forced the American people to turn to radical solutions. The two-party system has broken down, and Jack Reed is to be sworn in as the 31st President of the United States, with Norman Thomas to be sworn in as oh my god, my voice, sorry, not my voice, my just mouth box have stopped working, in as Vice President. In a stirring speech in Washington, D.C., Reed has pledged to defend the interests of the workers and work to help revolutionize society for the good of all Americans. However, the SPA's slim majority in Congress means that it may find it challenging to pass meaningful legislation, especially in the Senate, where the AFP has promised to filibuster any law it sees as detrimental to America, meaning basically just delay, which is annoying. I set them to exercise because we do have weapons, I believe, stockpiled and stuff, so we should be able to spare some as we gain a bunch of experience here.
Listen up.
So, enact sweeping reforms or focus on the longists. So we can either declare the America First Party and Huey Long a terrorist organization, or we can enact sweeping reforms in order to try to save the economy. At the moment, so this one obviously seems like short-sighted and just vindictive, while this one seems like it's actually going to try to help us. Executive Order 7080, Labor Unions. One of Reed's first acts as president as president to enshrine the rights to collectively bargain in law. The weird way of structuring that sentence, I think it needs an is, or was. Unwilling to wait to overcome the Senate filibuster and citing the violent conflict between the AFP and SPA paramilitaries, Reed passed an executive order that forced state and federal governments to recognize a union's right to exist and engage in collective bargaining. This is obviously going to ruffle some feathers. Without exception, thus forbidding yellow dog contracts. While the unions rejoice, many in the country denounce the executive order as a tyrannical act of the executive branch. Well, executive orders at this point have become fairly normal, as we've seen in the latest presidencies in the US. Act quickly, as we gotta fix this or shit goes down. The bourgeoisie are furious. From New York to San Francisco, the rich and powerful protested Reed's election in the Hearst newspapers and in congressional addresses. It is clear that the upper class is furious at the enforcement of Executive Order 7080 and have begun to radicalize against the SPA as a result. Also, maneuvers in the Carpathians, some tensions between Hungary and Romania. Directing the Secretary of Commerce to temporarily take possession of and, oh my god, of and operate the facilities of certain financial companies. The inability to, oh sorry, that's the 7089. The inability to deal with the Great Depression has been the death of two major parties, and it would be the death of the SPA as well unless Reed acted quickly and decisively. Believing that the corrupt financial sector was primarily responsible for creating and prolonging the Depression, Reed has moved to nationalize the banks of Wall Street. Oh my god, that's not going to go well. To force them to act in the public, rather than the private. Good. This includes stopping banks from foreclosing on bankrupt homeowners. A filibuster by Senator Roosevelt has forced Reed to resort to an executive order. Oh my god, excuse me, my throat is actually dying. I went to the doctor's yesterday, and, you know, he said he's going to schedule me for a specialist, so that's going to happen at some point. Appealing yet again to national security. While popular with the lower classes, many in the upper classes claim Reed is drunk on his power and well on his way to declare himself a dictator. Shut up, Long. Opposition denounces Reed as a tyrant, of course, claiming that it has to be an overreach of the executive branch and a start on the slide into tyranny. Of course he says that. Oh cool, we can actually do this one in okay. We can actually do that one in the fleet carrier plan route. I like this this part of the tree, the way this is structured. Pretty good. So I think we have a lot of big ships. We actually no, we have a lot of big ships and small ships. So I'm gonna go with we're gonna do all these anyways. I'm just gonna go with this one first. The Supreme Court hears case on Order 7089. The Supreme Court has showed the first challenge to Executive Order 7089. Standard Oil of California versus Paul Matic to be heard. This case is brought by Paul Matic to argue that the Standard Oil's monopolistic power has overtaken democratic power. The accusation of Standard Oil bribing the Boston City Council is being taken very seriously. The nation, thought it was going to say national. The nation waits to see if Reed's power will be checked, or whether the SPA will continue to enact their agenda in defiance of the Senate.
Orders. Attention.
Frihetens Vorpost. This is either a Danish or a Norwegian song. I think it's a Norwegian one. Sounds like Norwegian. Oh my god, so many executive orders. So this one is directing the Secretary of the Interior to temporarily take possession of and operate the facilities of certain mining companies. America's resources belong to the people, so it's all about seizing and nationalizing various aspects of the. Although Reed has shown no sign of concern over Standard Oil versus Paulmatic in the public, his administration is concerned that the conservative-leaning Supreme Court could rule 7-2 in favor of the capitalists, and revert whatever reforms had already been put in place. Citing Lincoln's court packing during the Civil War as precedent, Reed has asked Senate Majority Leader Mayor London to remove the filibuster for judicial appointees, and it has increased the size of the Supreme Court to 15. Oh boy. This is a total restructuring of the American democratic system. It is clear that he intends to appoint 6 pro-socialist justices to the bench, which will ensure his executive orders will remain constitutional. This has provoked a firestorm of protest, understandably, even from the left-leaning farmer, labor, and progressive parties, which has up until now been remain neutral or supportive of Reed. So, Reed, I think, has the capacity and the motivation to try remain in civil war as well. There, to try for all this stuff in a civil and more democratic manner. But the intense opposition, I think, kind of not only puts him in a tough spot, but kind of polarizes the situation. Like, I'm gonna go with the Sheridan. Like it puts Reed in a situation where, in order to actually get anything done, he has to do it in a way that might not be very, very good. And to his motivations and to his views and whatnot, what he's doing is still right. But to everyone else, it is a usurpation, or he is usurping the various aspects of the state. He's kind of like, yeah, he's corrupting the American democracy. Violence against the SPA spreads. But yeah, this our choice here depends on, or sort of influences what kinds of events we get. Like our choice for the president, which is why Reed gives some interesting choices here. I think Huey Long also has some really good ones. Floyd did not have that many very interesting ones when I saw, or when I checked. But yeah, in the immediate aftermath of the Reed's court packing, Long has come out aggressively against Reed, all but calling for an armed uprising. Oh boy. There's been a massive increase in reported violent clashes between Minutemen and SPA militia. Unless order is restored, the country is bound for a civil war. Who would have thought? There you go, clashes between Minutemen and the police. Long's call for resistance against Reed have been interpreted by some Minutemen as a call for assistance against any governmental and agency. Oh boy, that's the thing when you're a populist and you're when you fling a lot of sort of vague talk about an enemy, that leaves some of the more extreme parts of your constituents or your base to interpret it however they wish. That's why you got to be very careful about the way you talk about some things when you have, well, when you wield a lot of power, when you have an impressionable base, and you also, you know, you are a populist. You talk about enemies and friends. You know, talk in tribalistic terms. Long's Minutemen have now become common throughout the country. In cities with strong SPA presence, members of the General Defense Committee helped the police restore law and order, but in the Deep South, the Minutemen effectively have complete control. That is real bad. Naval aviation. There we go. Light cruiser time. MacArthur marches on to Washington. Reed's support in DC has finally bottomed out. General Douglas MacArthur has marched into Washington, D.C. today to arrest Reed and his cabinet at the White House. MacArthur's marchers reminded many in D.C. of Cox's army of 1932, except these men are motivated to preserve the status quo and were cheered instead of booed. Having been tipped off by SPA informants in MacArthur's command staff, Reed was able to stay ahead of the traitorous general and has escaped to Chicago. MacArthur has chosen to inhabit the White House and coordinate an investigation into Reed from the executive chair. Civil war is imminent. Oh, so there's so many Star Wars references. My allegiance was to the Republic, MacArthur, to democracy. That's now we have a military junta under Douglas MacArthur, but yeah, that was a General Kenobi quote. President Reed escapes. This actually went slightly differently from the way it went in the test game, which I really like. It's very unique. So Douglas MacArthur marches his military and sort of paramilitary organization into DC, echoing Mussolini's march on Rome. Though obviously this one actually, you know, this is the army. President Reed escapes to Chicago. President Reed has escaped to Chicago and declared that MacArthur is a traitor to all the people of America. His calls have gained a great deal of support in the Steel Belt, and a number of governors have already announced that they do not recognize the illegitimate the illegitimate authority of the current government. They have closed off their borders to the American soldiers, raising a chilling specter of the civil war that the country has experienced less than a century ago. My bad. My brain has just shut off. I blame the fact that I saw a very famous man yesterday. So, the disaster has begun. Stand by the Republic, or the revolution has begun. Stand by the workers, play as the CSA. Well, I'm going to save the game. All caps CSA divergence. In this playthrough, we will stand by the Republic. In the next playthrough, which will start shortly, I will load that save and the revolution will begin. With the war going on, the question is, should we implement conscription or not? Doing so would provide us with the men we need to restore order to the country. However, it is not a popular move. Some suggest focusing on propaganda instead. No, we need conscription. Huey Long declares the American Union state. In a fiery speech in New Orleans, Huey Long has spoken about the need to fight both the traitor MacArthur and pretender Reed. Both are tyrants that need to be stopped, or to be toppled, and only the AFP under his guidance can cleanse America. He's gained ready listeners among a number of Southern governors, all of whom have recognized that they recognize the authority of neither MacArthur nor President Reed. I'm not going to play the American Union State yet, but I might want to in the future. Stand by the Republic, still. My allegiance is to democracy. In fact, we have some different army structures here. Capital reserves. Interesting.
Listen up.
We also lost Smedley Butler because he goes to the CSA, I believe. Yeah, there's Chaffee, whom a tank was named after, according to a commenter. Thank you. Leslie McNair. Actually, no, he would be terrible for a Marine. Oh, Omar Bradley, there we go. That's a good one.
Ready to move.
The reason I chose conscription, by the way, is because I find that often MacArthur kind of fucks up when it comes to manpower.
Move out.
I'm gonna move everyone to Washington so they're in a spot where they can actually, like,
Listen up.
deal with all this.
Ready to move.
I'm gonna stop exercising. Like how our leader of the country is also the leader of our army. Now, the Pacific governors declare emergency. The governors of the Pacific states have declared that MacArthur, Huey Long, and Jack Reed are all traitors, tyrants, and enemies of America. They currently have not seceded. Oops. Please. Paradox. Fix this. Can't even move the window. That's annoying. Okay, the governors of the Pacific states have declared that that MacArthur, Huey Long, and Jack Reed are all traitors, tyrants, and enemies of America. They currently have not seceded from the Union, but instead refuse to recognize the authority of any of the competing governments. Governor Frank Merriam announced at the Sacramento legislature that if push comes to shove, they would see proper democracy restored to the country by force. So that concludes my playthrough of the United States of America. The next playthroughs that will begin will be a playthrough of the Combined Syndicates of America and the Pacific States of America. In the future, because I've saved these save games, if my voice becomes better and I have time to record more videos a day, which I would always like to do, then in the future I can totally see a Douglas MacArthur playthrough, and I can totally see a Huey Long playthrough. Stand by the Republic, play as the PSA. New folk history, we'll delve deeper into that in the next episode. Tech, have a look at the no, we actually did not get the doctrine when we tag switched. And Grand Battle Plan is fucking garbage. You lied to me, but that's fine. You probably didn't lie, but you might have been misinformed, and that's also fine. I don't judge. I'm talking to an unnamed commenter. But yeah, the American Civil War will soon break out. The America is balkanized. It's split up into many parts. The American Union State, echoing the Union, of course, the North in the Civil War, and the Combined Syndicates of America, CSA, echoing the Confederacy or Confederate States of America. And then we have the Pacific States of America, the NCR, basically. Dude, I can't wait to start playing these two. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like, you can check me out on social media. In the description down below, you'll find a link to my Twitter, where you can find updates on my health in regards to the voice, and videos, and also I post dumb shit there, like I found something funny in the YouTube help section, which I posted there. And also, I might be streaming on Twitch at some point. Please follow me there. If I have an actual established base, it can incentivize me to actually stream there, because right now I get more viewers here, meaning not that I'm more successful here, because I don't give a shit about that, but I provide content for more people. I provide entertainment to more people, which is fulfilling to me. That's what I want to do. So if I get people who actually want to see me on Twitch, then I'll stream there. Also, I do want to stream on Twitch because it's a very neat and convenient way of constantly communicating with people live. I do actually have YouTube streaming available to me, but I'm not exactly sure how it works. So I'll have to delve deeper into that. Let's see, what else is there to say? Yes, of course. The ghost of capitalism. If you would like, you can support me on Patreon. There's only one tier, $1 and up. You can give however much you want or however little you want. You can also give nothing, because just watching this video is enough to me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.